What we like about the space is that these businesses are really long sales cycles. It's incredibly complicated.
You like that?
I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. From an investment perspective, we have the ability and the desire to be that patient.
Welcome back, everybody. We are in the middle of our special summer season here on Connected Conversations. This mini season is all about what's going on in the crazy world of corporate real estate and prop tech. And I've really keyed in on some unique voices to share their opinions and their views with us. And today, we are super lucky to have Justin Vogt from Evermore Industries, who is a owner of AVUITY, the sensor company. And today we're going to talk to Justin about what the heck is going on with utilization in corporate real estate right now. Justin, welcome to the show.
Bob, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this.
Cool, man. The last thing I would want somebody to say is I've been dreading talking to you. That would be the worst. So, Justin, if you could do me a favor, you have a very unique background. We crossed paths just recently. We had a great conversation. I was like, I want to put this conversation on tape, if you will. You got a lot of great insights from, as you put it, being a little bit of an outsider. Can you just give our audience a little bit of background on yourself and how we kind of arrived at this conversation today?
Absolutely. So my background prior to kind of spending most of my time at the moment here in the corporate real estate world is as an investor. So day to day, kind of my role is supposed to be as leading investment activities for the investment business that we started called Evermore Industries. Evermore is set up to buy small growing businesses that are profitable that we think we can own forever. So very much in contrast to kind of the venture capital market, the private equity market. We look for businesses that we think have ultra long-term staying power, that we never need to sell, that we can kind of build and develop both employees, customer relationships, and broadly products that last a really long time. That thesis actually brought us to prop tech. And so when you kind of reference in the fact that I'm happy to be a bit of an outsider, that perspective tends to be a bit at odds with the current themes of a lot of prop tech. But we were able to find an awesome business called AVUITY, based in Cincinnati, Ohio, of all places, developing some really fantastic sensor technology, but flying quite under the radar as far as the broader prop tech market goes. The business was started as part of an architecture and design firm in Cincinnati under the thesis of, how do we develop technology to generate data to see if the designs the architects were building and putting out there were actually achieving the goals and metrics that they were hoping for their clients. That business had grown and done well, and eventually the architecture partner said, this probably isn't the right business for 12 architecture partners to own and operate. They wanted to find a new owner for it, which is where Evermore came in, which is where myself and my business partner came into the AVUITY story to say, hey, we can be a really good long-term home for this business. The founder, CEO of the business had looked at lots of different financing options, kind of knew the state of play, and really resonated with the message that we had, which is around, Evermore looks to buy a business. We want to get really involved with the day-to-day operations, which I'm sure we'll get to here. But also we want to build a team that's really sustainable here. We are not growth at all costs. We actually very much think about the bottom line. We think about profit. Our goal is to never go out and raise any more funding because we want to build a sustaining business. That ultimately came to fruition in the spring of 22. So we've been the proud owners of AVUITY for a little over a year at this point. And since then, we've really grown the team. We've about doubled in size from a headcount perspective. Opened up an office in Europe, opened up a data center in Europe. We've done countless sites here in the US. We're in every major city in Europe and the United States now. And broadly speaking, are having a whole heck of a lot of fun operating in this prop tech market and helping customers understand their utilization and occupancy for the buildings that they work in.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So I've been in the IWMS space, the real estate space, the facility space for my whole career. It's all I know. Like I've never sold any other type of software. I never sold hardware, although I've definitely helped in hardware pursuits of my industry colleagues in the sensor world for sure. I've definitely contributed there. What is that process like for somebody like you who's an investor who's looking for a really solid business? What was your first impression of this world, and what was kind of like the light bulb aha moment where, besides the dollars and cents, I'm not talking about that, where you're just like, this is interesting and I want to be a part of this? Like,
So yeah, we have a bit of a background in IoT sensors. My business partner and I have been investors and operators of kind of industrial type businesses with sensor technology in the past. So generally have a theme there around kind of knowing how these businesses tend to operate, the business model, et cetera. But in particular for real estate, what we like about the space is that that these businesses are really long sales cycles. It's incredibly complicated.
you like that?
I love
can't
it.
stand- I
It's
can't
absolutely
stand that.
fantastic. From an investment perspective, we have the ability and the desire to be that patient. We believe that our long-term mindedness has an ability to be beneficial to the customers that take a long time to move through this. And so these sensors that we're selling solve a very real problem. And then we can match our capital and our investment philosophy to an industry that allows that to happen. And so for us, it was absolutely the middle of the Venn diagram of kind of, stuff we knew being sensors and technology piece. And then a market that fit our idea and the way we like to run a business.
I've never, Justin, you're the first person, like when I started selling IWMS and people would ask me about it, I'd say 6 to 12 months, right? I'd say that was the sales cycle. Now I say the sales cycle is 12 months to 2 years, sometimes more often than not, extending past that. Like I've had customers I brought on after 3 years of having conversations with them, building trust with them, and moving across my career, basically.
Sure.
So you have such a unique take to where I've never heard somebody say, man, I just really love those long sales cycles. Is it just because you feel like over the test of time, your value prop will ring true and that you feel like you and your team have the stamina to win the day?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's stamina. It's patience. If we were sitting here saying we had to hit a quarterly number every quarter, come heck or high water of like, this is our quarterly number, the long sales cycle would be an incredible problem. Yeah. Deals get pushed, 10%. Well, 10% on a 24-month sales cycle is a really long time. 10% on a 2-week sales cycle is not that important. And so for us, having the ability to sit there and say like, even if it takes this, large customer 12, 24, 36 months to get comfortable to identify the project, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be profitable. We're still going to have the same salespeople working on the same accounts, doing the same account management because that's our goal. And so from a client service perspective, which I think a lot of prop tech does very well of developing incredible technology, we have a lot of solutions chasing a handful of problems. The actual differentiator here is to be a partner to a lot of these organizations, to be patient, to be understanding, to be a good person to work with, which doesn't necessarily mean trying to get sensors or get software or get whatever you're selling into somebody as quickly as possible, such that they don't have the ability to actually get the value out of it. Because by and large, prop tech solutions that are being sold aren't the ultimate outcome that a lot of our buyers are trying to get. A dashboard, an aggregation of data, a sensor in the ceiling doesn't save you any money, doesn't have any ROI. The ability to make better decisions with all of that technology is. And so we have to be there and be ready and help people make that decision. We don't need to be there to sell them a sensor. And so, when a customer comes to us and says, hey, we're going to run an RFP in 6-12 months, or I'm building a team over the next 18 months to be able to handle this type of data, that's music to my ears because like I'm here, I'm patient, I'm happy to go pursue that account. We'll build a relationship over those 18 months. Then we're happy to compete on that RFP and let's take that time. Let's be patient.
And you know what? throw everything out, right? If you came to me and you gave me, say I was still carrying a territory, and you
Hmm.
said, this is our philosophy here, I would love to work for you, Justin, because I've come in and out of teams, and you show up someplace in the first year and they give you this quota that is, I was like, these sales cycles don't support this
Hmm.
kind of quota in year one. Do you have some deals that you're going to give me that are about to come over the line? As somebody who is an individual contributor, looked at my manager at times and been like, I understand this process better than this person does. And it's like, how am I going to articulate that without sounding like I'm, trying to make up for some deficit that I have as a sales rep, where it's just like the industry won't bear that. I've
Hmm.
literally used those words in the past where it's like the industry will not bear that amount of revenue for one sales rep in that particular territory. I've
Sure.
also looked at the makeup of territories and been like, that's not a territory. Southern California in this business that I
Hmm.
sit in is not a standalone territory that can sustain a rep and a revenue driving business. It needs to be broader than that. It's not transactional. There's not a lot of these opportunities out there. You also got to look at where the HQs for customers are. Where's the bulk of the property? You would see that as well in the sensor business. So I think that philosophy, Justin, this isn't even what we came here to talk about, but really that philosophy and these private equities that are flooding this industry and dumping money into these companies, because you said something, I want to build a long, sustainable business, right?
Hmm.
They're dumping money into these companies thinking, oh, well, we add 20 more sales reps. That's going to mean, 10X on the business. And it's like, no, it's not. It does not work that way. And then they're looking for a quick buck. They're looking at, some of our friends in the industry have been turned and burned by private equity within a year or two after the initial investment. We've seen it. So I love your approach. That was a long sales cycle for me to get to the point of saying how much I really admire your approach.
And I mean, you said it, and my hope is that this philosophy resonates with a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people that have seen the other side of things, that have been burned by, quotas for Q1 or Q2, or, operations groups that don't understand how long it takes to go from PO to sensor in the ceiling deployed. The fact that we have this philosophy, I want to project that, like that's what we're going to stand for. And then ideally, like, my job over time increasingly becomes kind of recruiting and finding other people that think the way we think. It will become self-fulfilling if we have other people that think that way. It'll come through in every bit of our brand. It'll come through in the way we operate, the way we interact with customers, from the day of the sale, from the day of we meet them at a conference booth until, they've got a whole portfolio full of sensors. And you know what? That's going to take 5, 7, 10 years. That's perfectly fine. I want to have a growing business. My job is to help make sure that strategy is such that it's growing, and the people that started and do that can grow inside of our organization, because there shouldn't be. My goal is to avoid it at all costs, to have any kind of big turnover, like wholesale changes, whether that be on ownership or strategy or anything else, because being able to be here, that part of the appeal of all of the private equity and venture capital investors is, like, you look at the total addressable market in this space and it's enormous, and that's right, but it's not addressable today. But if we can just sit there and wait over time and kind of survive and be around long enough, like, we will be able to capture that, and we will be able to build a really big business in it. But it doesn't happen overnight.
And I think a lot of sales leaders who don't necessarily understand, maybe came up back in the day, came up when things were more transactional, came up when the internet didn't exist for people to do their research on a product.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the total addressable market, you said it beautifully, is big, but it's not right here, right now, where you're going to get all of it today. In my world, I say we need to take a look at these companies who've been on a system for 10 years. If they're hitting that 10-year mark, they got the bigger enterprise, like the Fortune 100. They got to start looking, because usually they invest in an IWMS for about 10 years. I say this to the sales reps all the time. Who's the usual suspects? Who have
Mm-hmm.
you seen at a conference? Who do you know that's about on the clock to be looking. And it's like, it's not here today, but there's a good chance it'll be there tomorrow.
But do that math. You just said Fortune 100, 10 years. So that's 10 accounts a year. Do you think that's going to be a high touch sales cycle where they're going to, they're making a buying decision once every 10 years? Are they going to do that with somebody they met 3 months ago at a conference and then signed on the dotted line? No chance.
I say this all the time. I said, that's when I came into Nuvolo, I said, I'm going to get you, I'm not going to promise a deal, but I'm going to get you meetings here, here, and here. And I closed some deals within the first year of my tenure here because I'd known them. And I said, I do like, even though I'm new at the company, I like the product. I like the value prop. I've looked under the hood. It'll work for you. And they're still with us today. And some of them are mutual joint customers that we share, but it's building that trust. I say it all the time. I say, you gotta have brand recognition in your territory. With your company. It's part of the reason why we do this, quite frankly, why we do this podcast. It's not necessarily about a sales pitch on anything per se, but it's about bringing smart people on and saying, we're all part of a community. If I can help a sensor company, if I could help a brokerage firm, my partners in the industry, and share their voices and everybody can learn from one another, it builds that trust within the community, if you will.
And community, it's a small world that we are operating in here, right? As someone like myself that's fairly new to this industry, right? I wasn't actively day-to-day involved in prop tech in particular a year and a half ago. And the last year and a half, we've made a heck of a, taken a bite out of the market to understand and meet the right people and understand it. And reputation spreads incredibly quickly, which is a double-edged sword or whatever you want to call it. of if you go out and do some incredible work for a few customers and you put the right people in touch and we can make that work really well. But also on our end, and this is, the philosophy of operating AVUITY, particularly in a small market like this, small in number of people, we need those customers to become advocates for us because you're going to go out, you're going to go to a conference and talk to another corporate real estate leader that's an AVUITY customer. And if I botched the install, if I botched the account management with them at that time, that word spreads really fast. But it goes the other way too of, hey, if we can prove that it's really easy to work with AVUITY, great, let's start that conversation. Let's make it happen. Because there is so much more that goes into all of this than just the simple RFP, line up the columns of attribute or the rows of attributes, columns of companies and pick the best. It doesn't work that simply.
I just honestly, Justin, again, I have nothing to gain out of saying this. I love your outlook. I love your take. And if for some reason I ever jumped in my DeLorean and went back in time and wanted to report, give a CRM report to somebody, I'd be happy to do it for you.
I love it.
Those days are behind me.
I'll make the plug here. One of the beauties of being a profitable business in this space, kind of amongst the layoffs that we know are happening today, and depending on exactly when this podcast goes live, the layoffs that still may be happening kind of either quietly or not so quietly across our space, like AVUITY's hiring. That's the beauty of being profitable is like, hey, we have the freedom to bring on new people when we find phenomenal people. I have no interest in hiring. We didn't just raise a big round of funding. That's not our MO where we have to go out and deploy it and hire 20 sales reps. But if we can find a phenomenal, head of customer success, head of account management, head of, account executives, CROs, operational leaders, project managers, we're always looking for them because whether I get that hire right today or 6 months from now, when you think about owning and being kind of a part of AVUITY for the next 20 or 30 years, that 6-month window is not that important. What's way more important for us is just getting the right people on the boat, rowing in the same direction. And the timing of that is almost irrelevant for us. And so I'll wave my flag there a little bit and say we're always recruiting.
Awesome. Love it. I really do. So now you said something that's going to lead to our segue, right? In our theme of what the heck is going on in our industry. And I think from you being an investor coming in recently, I think you have a great take on this. So recently, CBRE put out their occupier report. My friend Carrie Aldridge. If you haven't read it, go read it. I believe it's the spring occupier report. Occupiers are now accepting a utilization rate of less than 60% as the norm. And that means buildings are sitting essentially half empty on a regular basis. And I just recently moved back to downtown Denver, and I can look out my window at night, and with the lights being on and all these commercial properties, I look out at a building and I count 5 floors completely empty. And it's not that there aren't even desks in there. I could see we're talking, that's probably anywhere from 40 to 75,000 square feet of space just sitting there idle. So Justin, you say, we have, combined with the layoffs, combined with the macroeconomic climate, I hear about a little bit of quiet reductions in space. What the heck is going on with these portfolios? And when do you think we're going to start to hear, the same way we're hearing about layoffs, we're going to hear about XYZ company cutting, 5 million square feet of space? I'm not hearing it. I don't know if you are, but I'm not. I'm reading the reports and I'm seeing some of my broker friends putting that out saying, hey, we're going to have to look at this, but I don't hear it. What are you hearing? What do you think? What's your take on it?
We aren't hearing much of it either. And when we do hear of it, it's behind the scenes. People don't want to advertise it. That's not the big headline anybody wants written about their organization. If you're a real estate leader, and particularly of a large organization that occupies millions of square feet, do you want to be the real estate organization kind of that's out in front of has the article written in the Wall Street Journal about XYZ company cuts 30, 40, 50, 60% of their office space? All of a sudden, when we think about culture and people and kind of how you are perceived in the market, all of a sudden, that doesn't sound as good. What sounds a heck of a lot better is, hey, we just built a new smart LEED green certified building. We opened this new space. Look at all the beautiful things that we did. And so my bet is we're not going to hear it. You're going to see it. And I've got a background as being a, special situations debt investor as well. It's another prior life that happened in here. You'll probably see it more so there, and you'll start to see more defaults as people quietly leave space, decide not to pay the rent.
They're talking about it in San Francisco.
Absolutely. And so we're gonna hear about it there, but you're not going to. It's a really tough position to take as a corporate real estate leader, to go up here and say, for all these organizations that have been fighting for budget for the last 2 decades of their career, to go up and say, hey, I'm willing to reduce my budget. I'm willing to reduce my real estate spend by 40%. So and kind of take a smaller team, reduce my headcount, reduce my facilities team. That isn't what makes for a really popular resume. That doesn't make for a particularly appealing case for the next career jump. And so I don't think we're going to hear it. I don't think we're going to see it in headlines, but it will eventually happen.
Okay, so I'm going to take the other side of that now. So I'm the president of this enormous company with tens of millions of square feet of space, right? And with lease accounting rules, you have to report your liabilities on your SEC reports, right? And your board and all those things. These properties are liabilities at the end of the day. And they're affecting the bottom line, where money's going out. And that building I could see right now has 5 to 6 floors sitting completely empty. And it's like, if I'm the president of the company, if I'm sitting on that board, I'm saying, I know it's not a great selfish goal to reduce for a CRE leader who wants to move on to his or her next thing. But at the end of the day, I could see the opposite happening, where somebody took the bullet, and it would be advantageous potentially to their career to say, I saved that company, $100 million because I recognized how much money, and I did a good job of managing my data with sensors and dashboards and having a handle on my properties, having a handle on what the employees wanted. And I reduced that footprint. I put my ego aside and I save the company 100 million. Isn't there that too?
There should be. What we need to see is, and I'm a investor by trade. I'm a Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger
That's the
person.
guy.
Show me the incentive. I'll show you the outcome. Build an incentive program for those real estate leaders to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
The issue is somebody that's built a career, someone that's in that leadership position of a real estate organization today, has built a career around growing a footprint for 20 years at this point. That's a really difficult, though necessary and increasingly necessary, about face to make and say, a lot of that work I did to help grow our footprint, to grow into all of these new leases, et cetera. I'm going to now kind of spend the last 10, 15 years of my career unwinding that and becoming kind of that person. It's a really difficult thing for people to do, and it's a really bitter pill to swallow. It will happen, but it's not going to happen easily. And you do see some of it, right? I live here in Austin. I was really impressed to see Meta sign up almost 600,000 square feet of office space in the newest, fanciest high rise going up in downtown. That was January of 22. By November of 22, they had done the complete about face and said, we're going to sublease all, I think it's 590,000 square feet of an office tower. Incredible to see some teams make that about face and to do it publicly. Though I don't necessarily think we're going to always hear about that in the news because it's a difficult thing to be written.
I think the cream will rise to the top. And I think those leaders who are willing to put their egos aside and say, we're doing this for the good of our investors. We're doing this for the good of the bottom line, annual bonuses. I think those people who are strong enough to stand on their own 2 feet and make those decisions and come right out in front of it, I think those are going to be the winners out of all this.
I completely agree. And I'm right there with you. My job is to find more of those people, right? Because that's to speak selfishly, like that's the ideal customer for AVUITY. Right. We want to help you make a data-driven decision about exactly that. I do, like, to be clear, like I absolutely think that's what's going to happen. It's a prideful thing for someone to be a part of, to say, to step up in an organization to be able to do that and make that happen and save those dollars for the organization. But we'll get there.
Yeah. I think you said, I want to go back to something we were talking about offline, where you were talking about looking through resumes and really kind of reading between the lines and what you see on those in terms of resumes coming across your desk for ex-corporate real estate executives, because obviously AVUITY is always looking for the best and brightest talent right now. You're seeing a lot of resumes. What are some of the common themes you're seeing? What's something good and what's something not so good?
Yeah, so we see it all the time, and we've particularly given the state of the world and the turnover that has happened. But the resumes I get from corporate real estate executives kind of looking to make a change here, the primary points they list are: how many square feet did I manage? What was my total budget? What was my team size? Here's my management capacity. All of which are kind of the outward facing things that they present to someone like myself that's looking to hire and grow a team. When in reality, kind of what I'm looking for is somebody that is kind of willing to bite that bullet and say, this is going to be a really tough decision for the amount of square feet I manage. This is going to be a really tough decision for the amount of dollars in my real estate budget. And I'm willing to take that because I can make an informed decision. I can make a data-driven decision to reduce that footprint of my corporate office space. Historically, that I don't believe that that's what we've seen, because that's what comes across my desk is, my incentive is to have the biggest number of square feet possible. You can watch the promotions through somebody's career of, I went from a organization, with one site, I managed one office, then I had 10 sites all in the US, then I had 50 sites across the world. And that's been the traditional promotion path for a lot of people through a corporate real estate team. Kind of what we're talking about here is that, actually that might be reversing, and the person that's most in demand to be hired today is the person that's had the ability to say, I've taken that one site where we were 30% occupied, I reduced it by half and made it 75% occupied, and I had that 50 site portfolio that we had X million square feet, and I got it down to half of, one half X million square feet to be able to efficiently operate with, an increase in utilization rates. But like the utilization rate isn't what somebody puts on a resume today as what they improve, when that in reality, if I were a leader of that organization thinking about my spend on office space, that's what I'd care about, not how many square feet we have. I don't even care how many square feet you reduce. I just want to see the improvement in the use of it, because it's an asset. And yes, it shows up, the lease shows up as a liability, but that office space we have is an asset. And if I'm using that asset well, I'm always happy to invest in it and has an ROI.
In turn,
not necessarily the way people think about it.
In turn, you're investing in your people, because then your people value their time in that asset. So it's like if you can grow those utilization rates, that tells me you or somebody on your team is really creating a culture where people want to be a part of that. And that's now that I listen to you and I start thinking, that's what I would look for. I'd be like, how did you improve the experience to then in turn drive those utilization rates a little bit higher, right?
Absolutely.
Where somebody's willing to commute into the office. So as we kind of get to the tail end of our conversation here, I'm going to ask you off the cuff, give me a prediction. Give me a hot take. Give me whatever you want. Look into your crystal ball. You're a smart dude. Don't be humble. You're a smart dude. Give me a prediction for the next year. What are we going to see? You can take it any way you want. Give me a prediction.
The one that's pretty clear to me is we're going to see a big shakeup amongst the venture-backed prop tech community. I think a lot of people, particularly in a post-COVID world, have learned just how long this sales cycle is. And we're going to have a fundamental disconnect from a lot of the organizations that raised capital 18 to 24 months ago at enormous valuations because we thought we had a kind of a viral market. And in reality, we don't have a viral market here. We have a market that plugs along step by step. And the organizations that win will be the high service, high touch, easy to work with organizations, not necessarily those that tried to push the gas pedal all the way down to the metal. And so kind of my expectation is we'll see kind of larger, well-funded organizations stumble, and we're going to see kind of a new crop of smaller, new upstart organizations kind of take that on. My hope is that those organizations do it kind of in obviously the philosophy that I had, which is start small, win a customer, get a proof of concept, do it profitably, be proud of making a profit. Your customers should want you to make a profit just as much as you do, because they want a product that sticks around and is sustainable, and plot along kind of, step by step in growing an organization. And so to the extent that, there are employees, that there are business units, et cetera, that are kind of struggling at the large organizations, I'm really anxious to see that. It's a trend we've seen in big tech for years, of when there's layoffs at the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, those people, those teams go out and build really awesome new businesses. I think that that will happen in our space as well. You just have to be really careful about the capital you take and then the way you decide to fund that business, such that you know what you're signing up for and you know exactly kind of what expectations are for your organization, and make sure that those expectations from the capital side match the expectations from the buyer side, because it's when those things get mismatched that we in prop tech tend to stumble. I have a saying all the time that I say to all of my teams: frustration equals expectations minus reality. Yeah. Reality, we have our ability to control. Expectation, have some ability to control. Expectations are just kind of what you tell me. It's what we set up. It's being clear. It's being honest. It's being forthright with me, such that the reality that comes later matches those expectations. And if we have that, there won't be any frustration. And I think what we've struggled with in prop tech, and what we're going to see more of a struggle with here in the next 18 months, is when those expectations were set very differently than what becomes reality, resulting in a decent amount of frustration.
We're already seeing it, right? We've had some offline conversations. We're already seeing it. This is happening. And it's nice to know that in such a tumultuous time, particularly in this industry, that there are companies like AVUITY out there with strong leadership. Now, I mean this. I I always end these podcasts with a little bit of gratitude that there's strong, fresh voices like yours, Justin, in this industry. I don't casually just ask anybody to come onto this podcast. I want people to come on here who need a platform that I can share mine with, because I think you have something to offer. I think you have something to offer as a leader, as an investor, and as a company with what you all are doing and, really kind of leading the way in this space as a fresh face and a fresh brand. So I thank you for doing that. One last question before I let you go, since you live in Austin, Texas, and we got to keep this fun. What's your favorite barbecue joint?
My favorite is a truck up on the northeast side of town called Thwaites.
Okay.
You have to. It's a little tricky. You have to order well ahead. You have to place your order the day before. You have to pick it up by 5. It's a whole to do.
Okay.
But if we have friends and family in town, I get everybody's brisket order ahead of time, and we do Thwaites. In particular, it's got a little bit thicker bark and it's leaner, which I really, really love. It's got a lot of really punchy flavor and just an absolutely fantastic
burnt
brisket.
ends. Are you a burnt ends guy? I'm a burnt.
I will absolutely do burnt ends. Yeah, that's putting all the really fun, good stuff on the end, giving me that char and that bark that I really enjoy.
Okay, are you gonna hate me if I tell you that Salt Lake barbecue is my favorite?
I love Salt Lake. I was at Salt Lake last week.
Okay, which one?
The one just south of town, out by Driftwood.
Okay, that's the one I had a local take me out there years ago. I used to support Dell in another life. So I'd be down there all the time. Obviously, I went to the one in Round Rock, but I had a friend take me out to the one in Driftwood, and I couldn't believe it. And ever since then, that was 10 years. That was 11 years ago. Ever since then, I either go out to Driftwood to get that kind of nostalgic kind of I'm out in the hills of
Yep.
And I get family style for myself or the whatever that plate is where they just keep bringing it. I go every time. I go in the summertime. I eat way too much. I spend the next few hours regretting the decision. But every time I go back, and now there's one in the airport. And it's like every time I either get off the plane or I'm that guy who gets off the plane and goes to one of the restaurants in the airport. I'm that guy. So.
Which I love about Austin. We've extended the culture of the city into the airport. I travel constantly. I'm in the Austin airport way too often. But the fact that getting into the airport feels like coming home to me, which I love. That, I think that's just a great welcome to the city. And the fact that you've stopped there on your way in is exactly what I kind of hope a welcome to Austin is for people.
Oh man, I'm really nervous to tell, but most people don't, because I feel like Salt Lake has been the one that's kind of very commercial. And I mean, it's not really a chain, but with 3 locations, and I don't know if they're 4th now. It's kind of but
they've got a good thing going. Good for them.
They do. So with that said, this was Justin Vogt from Evermore Industries, the owner of AVUITY, here with us today on our very special summer season of Connected Conversations. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. I certainly did. What a great fresh take. Justin, thank you so much for being with us today.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I want to tell everybody I'll see you on the interwebs, and thank you for joining us, and look for more episodes as we navigate our way through this scorching hot summer. Take care.